Hi. So I just watched The Suicide Squad, sequel to Suicide Squad, and I wanted to share my thoughts about it on YouTube because that's what you do. And the first thoughts that I'll share are just the few comparisons that I would make between the two movies. Um, uh, they and I will direct the few people who watch this to read David Ayer's very interesting letter about the process of making that original Suicide Squad movie, what he thinks of the cut, how it differs from, in so many ways, from what he imagined and what he claims there was his version exists in a more finished version than, say, the Snyder cut did before they actually finished it. Um, and But there was also a release of the movie. It was released in movie theaters, and that is what is being compared to the new movie. And the new movie compares to it favorably. Uh, it is better, more coherent, more evenly paced and constructed, and as a result, there are things that carry over from the first movie that work really well, either by surprise uh, or it's a relief. And two of those things are characters, Harley Quinn and Amanda Waller. Now, first, Amanda Waller, Viola Davis, she got uh, some guff or whatever about the first movie um, because her part was not, at least as presented in that studio cut, uh, very well constructed or interesting. And that resulted in one of our great actors, Viola Davis, uh, seeming to turn in a performance that was not very well constructed or interesting. And so it was a relief. She's more interesting and better constructed character wise and writing wise and directing wise in this movie. And therefore, the performance is more easily enjoyable, but it's still of a piece with that other character, which suggests she was doing all she could in that first movie. It just there wasn't much that she could do. So I was glad that it was of a piece and it wasn't just a whole new flashy thing because it's better done and she's more into it. It's the same character, it's a consistent character, and now I'm very interested to see if the character goes where the character goes in future installments. Another character that I was a little worried about was Harley Quinn, who was universally praised uh, as one of the best things about that first movie, and has had her own movie in between. Uh, and My concern for her and other people on the internet that I listened to had this concern as well, was that the character would be done to death, stretched too thin, and ultimately this great creation would just become a parody of itself, which happens to characters as great as Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. And that is not what happened here. This movie was not Harley Quinn featuring the Suicide Squad. It was a Suicide Squad movie. It was about all of them and how they work together. Um, it's possible she even stood out in that movie because it was written for her to stand out in that movie, even not knowing that she would be one of the standout elements of it, because they included the Joker in that movie. Uh, so I was relieved by that. It's the same character. It's just as great, but it blends in. It's not a like last time. It didn't blend in because it was a cut above the rest. Except Will Smith was up there with her. But this time it blended in. She has my favorite line in the movie. It's not a particularly special thing that is said or important thing that is said. The words are not interesting. It's just a thing that in the middle of stuff she says. It's hilarious. I won't say what it is. I wonder if any of the few people watching it, when they watch the Suicide Squad, will know what I'm talking about. Um, and so those are, I think, the only things original to sequel that I would note, those performances and the overall tone. Um, this movie seems to be what the theatrical cut of that first movie was intended to be, but not what David Ayer's cut, the way that he describes it, was intended to be. Um, so yeah, kind of like the Snyder cut of uh, Justice League feels more in line with uh, Snyder's other two movies than the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League. Um, but I still like both. Um, so yeah, this was a generally enjoyable movie. Classic summer popcorn blockbuster thing in an era when blockbuster season spread seems to be all year round, and same with Oscar season. All movie seasons are intermingling. This felt like something that my picturesque summer movie theater is the Vogue in Manistee, on River Street, which is a classic 1950s looking movie theater from the 1950s, and this is the kind of thing that I would expect to walk into that movie theater and watch. And that it wouldn't feel like in the summertime, even though you should be enjoying the outside in the summertime, you should enjoy the outside all year round, but people tend to favor the summertime for some reason. Even though you should be doing that, this would be of a piece with enjoying the summertime. This movie, so but it's it's surprising. This movie, unlike like the other one, pretty predictable, and I thought this one was going to be predictable. Like I came in with high expectations because people were praising it, and I think that by comparison with the other movie, it's really really great. But standing on its own, it's merely really really good, but it's still really really good. But uh, my expectations were a bit higher than perhaps they should have been because of the reviews that I watched before I watched the movie. Um, and so it, I kind of went in and initially was a little bit underwhelmed and thought, oh well, it's going to be predictable. But then it was not predictable. Um, Things happened that completely caught me off guard. Things happened that nothing quite knocked me over, but I was surprised that one of the most electric scenes was between two characters that I didn't particularly find interesting, um, but it actually started to, you know, inhabit meaning that I didn't think I was going to find in this movie, and it ended in a way that I wouldn't have expected. It was nice that the movie was unpredictable. Um, Even Amanda Waller's character unpredictable, uh, uh, and Harley Quinn as an unpredictable moment. It's just it was nice to be surprised by the movie that falls into a genre and category that is often by the books and by the numbers and formulaic. Uh, and it also has that giant starfish from the trailer that is also more interesting than one would think a giant starfish would be. So and just to name a few, uh, Idris Elba, great. I was glad that not that this made much of a difference. My appreciation of Idris Elba, I already knew he was great. But earlier this year, uh, the malevolent supernatural force I live with and I watched Lupin, and so I was kind of it felt good to have watched that in anticipation of this. I feel it enhanced my appreciation, even though again he's pretty much always great. Um, but also, um, similar to the first Suicide Squad and most comic book movies for me, I didn't know most of these characters going in except the ones that had been in the other movie. And so the fact that I came out of the movie, I cared a little bit about the polka dot guy. I really loved King Shark, um, and Ratcatcher 2, not even Ratcatcher 1, but Ratcatcher 2 um, had some of my favorite moments. The other movie, everybody got to do their flashbacks. This movie was only Ratcatcher 2, and they were wonderful, the flashbacks. The flashbacks in the other movie, they were a little superfluous. In this one, they were wonderful. Um, and so it's like I go in, I don't know who most of these people are. I come out, I'm glad that I spent time with them. and in some cases, I'd like to get to know them more, and hopefully, I will. I don't know. Um, Most of the DC movies don't have sequels. This is the only one, I think. Well, technically, Batman v Superman and Justice League are sequels to Man of Steel, but Justice League feels like its own thing. But anyway, as far as movies that are and Wonder Woman, of course, has a sequel, and I liked it. Um, but it's not like Marvel where everything has multiple sequels already. And this is a sequel. There are characters that go between the movies, and I hope that this one keeps going, even though I have absolutely no idea where it might go and what I might think of it. Um, so very enjoyable. Give it a shot, and I'm going to end it there. Have a good night.